38 days, over 13,000 targets destroyed, 92% of Iran's navy on the seabed, the missile factories that fed the war reduced to rubble, the air defense network dismantled. On April 8th, the United States declared victory in Operation Epic Fury. Hormuz is still closed. Not partially closed, not symbolically closed. Closed. 9 ships per day are transiting the strait on average since the ceasefire. Before the war, that number was 130. 230 loaded oil tankers are sitting anchored inside the Persian Gulf right now, waiting. Brent crude is hovering near $100 a barrel. The largest oil supply shock in recorded history is still running, 1 week after the United States military declared that its objectives had been met. How does the most powerful military in human history win every battle and still not have what it went to war for? The answer is not a failure of the Air Force, the Navy, or the Marines. It is a lesson about the difference between destroying a military and controlling geography. That difference is the reason the strait is still closed today. Winning an air campaign means destroying targets. The United States destroyed targets at a scale and pace the world has never seen. Every metric of military success pointed the same direction. Iran's ballistic missile stockpile was reduced by more than half. Its navy was obliterated, its air force was grounded, its air defense network was shattered, its defense industrial base was left in ruins. By any traditional measure of military power, Iran was defeated. But Iran did not need military power to keep Hormuz closed. It needed geography. Geography does not get destroyed by a B-1B. The Strait of Hormuz is 21 miles wide at its narrowest point. The navigable shipping channel is 6 miles wide. Iran's coastline runs the entire northern edge of that channel. The Zagros Mountains and the Iranian Plateau rise directly behind it. Every beach, every inlet, every island along that coast is Iranian territory. From that territory, Iran does not need a functioning navy, a working air force, or an intact missile factory to make the strait unusable. It needs a minefield, a drone on a truck, a shore battery in a cave, a credible threat that if your tanker enters those 6 miles, it might not come out the other side. The geography has not changed. The B-1B cannot alter coastline. The F-35 cannot relocate a mountain range. The USS Tripoli cannot move Iran 60 miles to the east. Every military advantage the United States brought to this campaign operated above the geography, around it, and against the military infrastructure built on it. None of those advantages remove the fundamental physical reality that Iran sits on top of the only maritime exit from the Persian Gulf. That fact was true before the first bomb fell on February 28th. It is true today. Insurance companies underwrite risk. And the risk of transiting Hormuz in the mind of every underwriter in London, Singapore, and New York has not been resolved by a ceasefire announcement. On April 8th, a 2-week ceasefire was announced. One of its central terms was that Iran would allow ships to transit freely. Iran's response was to charge over $1 million per vessel and require ships to coordinate with Iranian forces before entering. Trump called it extortion. The White House called it completely unacceptable. The shipping industry called it a reason to stay anchored. Lars Jensen, a maritime analyst at Vespucci Maritime, said it plainly. De facto, the ceasefire has done absolutely nothing to change the situation in the strait. None whatsoever. The Islamabad talks collapsed on April 12th. 21 hours of negotiations. J.D. Vance led the American delegation. Iran's foreign minister and the parliament speaker led their side. They met across the table for the first direct talks between the U.S. and Iran since the 1979 revolution. After 21 hours, Vance walked out. Iran had not agreed to stop uranium enrichment, dismantle its enrichment facilities, hand over its highly enriched uranium stockpile, end funding for regional militias, or open the Strait of Hormuz without conditions. Iran did agree to a ceasefire on its own terms. Here's the strategic equation Iran ran and the United States did not fully account for. Iran cannot defeat America on the battlefield. It never could. That was never the plan. The plan was to absorb the military campaign, preserve the one leverage point that matters, and negotiate from a position where the pain of the war falls on the global economy rather than only on Iran. Every day Hormuz stays closed, it costs the world an estimated $2 billion. Iran does not pay that cost. Japan pays it. Germany pays it. South Korea pays it. India pays it. Every country that imports oil through that channel pays it. Iran collected that economic leverage every single day of the campaign. Even while its military was being dismantled from the air, it was accumulating pressure on every government on earth to push for a resolution. Saudi Arabia and the UAE face GDP contractions of 3 to 5% if the disruption continues through the quarter. Kuwait and Qatar are looking at contractions as high as 14%. That pressure does not disappear when the bombing stops. It intensifies. And it shifts the negotiating table in ways that military victory alone cannot reverse. And then there is the detail that CNN's satellite imagery confirmed this week. During the ceasefire, Iran has been working around the clock to clear the debris, blocking the entrances to its underground missile bases. These are the same facilities that the B-1B spent weeks collapsing with GBU-72 penetrators. Front-end loaders are scooping rubble. Dump trucks line up at tunnel entrances. The missile cities that took 3 decades to build are already being excavated for reconstruction. This was expected. It was also unavoidable. A ceasefire requires accepting that your adversary will begin to reconstitute some of the military capacity you spent weeks destroying. That is the nature of a pause, not a surrender. Iran's missile cities were designed around exactly this logic. You absorb the first attack, you dig yourself out, you launch again. The ceasefire gave Iran the time the design assumed it would eventually have. American intelligence assessed that roughly half of Iran's missile launchers survived the campaign, buried underground by the strikes. The ceasefire gave them the time to start digging out. The military objective was to destroy Iran's ability to project power. The strategic objective was to open Hormuz and prevent Iran from reconstituting a nuclear program. Those are different problems. And the tools that solved the first problem, the bombers, the fighters, the naval forces, are not the tools that solve the second. On April 13th, the United States announced a naval blockade of Iranian ports. Not the strait itself, Iranian ports. The distinction matters. CENTCOM stated clearly that freedom of navigation for non-Iranian vessels transiting the strait would not be impeded. The blockade targets Iranian exports. The logic is economic pressure rather than military escalation. But the strait is still not open. A 2-week ceasefire extension is reportedly under consideration. The talks may resume. The mines are still on the seabed. The tankers are still at anchor. And Iran is still demanding conditions for access to a waterway it does not, under international law, have the right to close. Winning on the battlefield is not the same as winning the war. The United States Air Force did what it was asked to do. The Navy did what it was asked to do. The Marines arrived. The bombers flew. The targets were destroyed at a scale the world had never seen. And 6 miles of water, a geography that existed before the war and exists after it, remains in Iran's hands. That is the equation no amount of ordnance has solved. The strait is still closed. The negotiators are still talking. And the world is still paying the bill.